So when you think of modern BMWs, you probably think of like the E46 M3 or the E39 M5 or the mid-2006 series. Well, today I have one of the most unique BMWs to come out of the 2000s, and I'm going to show it to you. This is a 2001 BMW Z8. Well, sadly, this car doesn't quite take the cake as the most unique BMW. That would go to the BMW Z1, which I would love to film someday. This car is quite interesting, to say the least. Mainly being the fact that it's a fairly small two-seater V8 powered 6-speed manual convertible. Hardtop convertible at that. And when I say V8, it's not like, it's not the V8 you think of when you think of the early 2000s in general. It is a 400 horsepower, 4.9 liter, that was actually shared with the E39 M5 of the same era. And now that we've got that out of the way, let's have a look at the styling, one of the most interesting parts of the Z8. Because the styling was supposed to go back to the BMW 507 of the 50s and 60s, but keep a modern touch, which actually this car has some modern features that a lot of cars didn't have for a long time. Which specifically, even though they're not LEDs, the turn signals and the brake lights are neon of sorts. They're basically a neon tube like you would see on a neon sign or something, but they're used as a practical application on the car, and they're basically equal to LEDs, except for I'm sure they were a lot more expensive to put on the cars than LEDs are nowadays. And such on the rear, you wouldn't be able to normally find the backup light. As I said, backup light, not backup lights, because there's one of the little red lights below on the bumper. One of them is a rear fog light and one of them is a backup light. And it's weird because they both are kind of tinted red, but the backup light shows up perfectly white. I don't know how it works, but it's pretty cool. And then speaking of lights, one of the strangest things about this car is that it does have daytime running lights, but the daytime running lights consist of the front marker lights, the high beams on a lower setting, like a dimmer setting, and the rear side marker lights. The tail lights don't light up, and the headlights don't light up. So, I don't know why that is, but the strange thing is, with all this high-tech stuff this car has, it doesn't have a power tonneau cover for the top. So basically this car has a hard top, a soft top, and you can have the top down, of course. And once you take the hard top off, it reveals the soft top is like completely exposed. It doesn't actually have a boot that is automatically put onto it. You actually have to take the boot, out of the trunk or whatever, and snap it in yourself. Which is kind of strange on a car that cost $150,000 almost new, and will go well over $200,000 nowadays. But it's not that hard really. You just have a few snaps and it goes right into place. And you also have a nice little wind deflector that goes in between the tops of the seats. And speaking of the hardtop, this car actually looks pretty fantastic with the hardtop on. It's actually kind of a cool design. It's more of design element than it is to actually help the car. I think all the structural rigidity that this car has is actually in the frame, really. It doesn't really rely on the top, which is nice. And the soft top, of course, looks like a soft top. Nothing really to say fancy about it. Besides the fact that it's actually pretty fancy and the fact that it's a power top, and then whenever you get it up, instead of latching itself, you actually push a button on the front of the top where you normally have a latch to latch the top of his manual. You push a button and it basically brings itself down and latches itself, which is pretty cool. And then going from the outside to the inside, the interior is fantastic on this car. Not just build-wise, but the styling is like no other pretty much. It's very simplistic, which I really enjoy. It's got a few cubby holes like in the doors and whatnot, but it's all painted silver to match the exterior. Well, a lot of the dash and everything. And there's nothing really cluttering anything. Like, you only have one power window switch on the driver's door. It's like that uncluttered. The gauges are in the center of the dash, which is pretty cool, which is a design feature I'm kind of indifferent about. I'm not a huge fan of it myself because I don't like to look over to the right. I like to, look straight ahead of me and then just look down a little bit and see my gauges. But it's not really detrimental to the car at all. But the gauges are pretty easy to read. They're pretty simple laid out. They look like normal BMW gauges other than the fact that they're in the center. And then if you go down, you don't really see much besides some switches for the climate control, which all have a real nice feel to them. And then you have the radio behind a little back plate, which actually had navigation, surprisingly. And then you have the 6-speed shifter, which is also fantastic. And the shifter is great in this car. I really, really enjoyed the shifter. And of course, one of the coolest things in the interior is the steering wheel. It has this kind of 3-spoke design, but it's like a banjo steering wheel, you call it. Not thick spokes. It's got a bunch of little spokes in different spots. And it really just adds to the retro theme of the car. And then the driving experience of this car is pretty fantastic. I wasn't a huge fan of it. It's definitely fast, it's definitely good at handling, but my problem was that the throttle isn't a normal wire throttle or mechanical throttle where there's a wire going from the actual gas pedal to the engine. It's an electronic one, and it's a very, very early electronic one. And I can definitely tell because there was a very noticeable delay between when you would actually hit the gas and when the car would actually go. But other than that, like, that's a pretty small gripe compared to the fact that this car is actually extremely fast and was known to be able to beat the Ferrari 360 Modena around tracks back in 2001, which is a huge thing for BMW. And so that will conclude this little video of the BMW Z8. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, leave them in the comment section below, and I will be happy to answer them. But for now, thank you all so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Here's a strange BMW Z8 thing. So you see you have your power mirror control right here, but there's only one. There's not one for the passenger side on the driver's door. So what you do is you take this little switch here that's only for the mirrors to switch the sides. You can either put it in the middle or on either side, and then you can put down this window or this window, or put it, like I said, put in the middle, and you can put them both up at the same time, or somewhere around there. But only the driver's side works with auto up. The passenger side is only auto down, which is strange.